What did it take for Nongulego Kobodo to become South Africa's first black female chartered accountant? Do chartered accountants and auditors often find themselves at loggerheads with authorities? What is the racial composition of the leaders at SABC and Kobodo? Why are there so few black chartered accountants, particularly female? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mpho Tsedu. Women empowerment and socio-economic transformation remain some of the priorities towards ensuring a successful implementation of South Africa's ambitious NDP. The country's first black woman chartered accountant and SABC and Kobodo executive chairperson Nongulego Kobodo has defied the odds, and this accounting firm has become one of the 5 largest in the country. As we observe Women's Month, we ask, are women capable of filling top executive positions? And if yes, then why are there still so few women in top leadership jobs? My guest today is Nongulego Kobodo, executive chairperson of SABC and Kobodo. Ma'am, welcome to the show. It's quite indeed a privilege to have you here.
Thank you, Mpho.
Are you tired of being referred to as the first black women chartered accountant?
I used to think that I should be tired by now until someone reminded me that it may be a long time since you became the first, but there is always a new generation of black children who need to be motivated and encouraged. So I accept that I will be referred to as the first black.
Okay. It wasn't an easy road, and actually you weren't the strongest of women. You once gave up. What made you come back?
I suppose I had a dream, and that dream was to establish a large black accounting firm. And at the time, I was young, I was impatient, and my colleagues were not ready for this dream. And I thought, as black people will never develop, let me just leave the profession and go and do other things that I had a burden about at that time, which were about developing leaders, and the church gave me a platform to develop leaders. But when you have a dream, it's always there at the back of your mind. And people also remind you, so they started putting pressure on me, come back, and I agreed because I realized that I still had an unfulfilled dream.
Okay. You are a product of a Bantustan administration.
Well, yes. And sometimes we just use this as an excuse, and let's not excuse apartheid and the impact it had on us as black people. But I also grew up in a family where I was told that there's nothing that I could not do. And so the words of my father and the words of my mother always rang out to me when they told me that I was black and a woman and I couldn't do this and that. And I would remember what my mother used to say and what my father used to say, and I would tell myself that there's nothing that I cannot do. When my children correct me about, my accent and things like that, I remind you went to that school because of me.
Yes.
So that's not the issue. The issue is, there's just such inborn talent in all of us, and such a determination to succeed that would not allow anybody to tell us that we belong there.
Okay. Founding the company at first, what did it take for you? What really drove you to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to try this and let's see where it will take me?
You actually reflect later, because when you're young, you're ambitious, and unfortunately for me, I call myself a natural entrepreneur. When you're a natural entrepreneur, you don't have that fear factor that sort of stops most people. You think about the end game, and you don't look at the obstacles until you face them. So I always had this dream of having my own accounting firm. And I thought it was my dream. I grew up in a family of business people. I was exposed to business very early in my life, fortunately. And so business was something of a natural thing. But later on, because you keep being asked this question. Later on, I reflected, but why was I that courageous? And I realized that I grew up in Amtata. First of all, as you would understand, Amtata was independent, Transkei and all of that. So I grew up in an environment where there were black, successful business people. And there was a university there. Mm-hmm. There was Professor Nkuhlu, who had an accounting, the first African accounting firm.
Yes, and you were 48, actually, although you met at the panel beating.
Yes. Yeah. So, and he was already producing other young African accountants. And so, it's not hard now to understand why I would be able to dream those dreams, because there were already people who were successful, who were mentoring me, even if I had not met Professor Nkuhlu personally at that time.
But you also credit General Bantu Holomisa for actually making it possible for you to be where you are today, although it wasn't a good story.
Yes. Sometimes, you dream and you put aside your dream, which is a good thing, because I think you must start your dream when you're ready and sort of have the maturity for it. And I suppose this is something that young people miss, that if I had pursued my dream as soon as I finished my articles at KPMG, I wasn't ready for it. So I did need the business exposure that I got from the Transkei Development Corporation. So I sort of put aside the dream, and I was now an executive. You're well paid, you drive this big car, and starting a business is difficult.
Yes.
But I must credit the former general to have pushed me towards my dream, because when you get frustrated, at that time I was frustrated because suddenly we were subject to these soldiers who, they had no etiquette or anything like that. You were treated anyhow, and you're a professional. I'm a chartered accountant. I can't be treated like that. And I thought, no, there's no way I'm going to allow myself to be frustrated like this. I can't work because you make these plans and the general, cancels all those plans. I said, no, it's time to pursue my dream. So I'm very grateful to him.
Just tell me a bit about the 6-hour waiting.
You've really researched. No, these generals, I think it was the first time for them to be, at this level, and all these benefits that come with it. Mm-hmm. So we would be summoned as executives to whatever. Potterstown, yes. Mm-hmm. And you would then be told to wait here for the general. And would wait and wait and wait for these 6 hours, because we're supposed to be presenting something, and then a soldier will come and say, go back, you're not going to be seen. And that's when I thought, this is it now for me.
And then Umam Stella Skau also played a role.
Oh, a significant role. That woman really came before her time, if I may put it that way. Mm. Because, we were talking yesterday, with someone exactly about this thing, that how she had this foresight of early on during our democracy. She forced this issue to say, I'm going to empower black people. Mm. And I think if she had not done that, we'd probably not be where we are today, because we also still believe this thing that we couldn't, do certain things at a certain level. And she bit the bullet and said, I'm going to give 50% of the audit of Transnet to black people. Mm. And there was an uproar in the country, in the accounting profession. These people, how can you even believe that they would be able to do this? And even ourselves were saying, what do we do with this now? But we quickly realized that this is an opportunity. We're going to rise to the occasion, and we organized ourselves and put together a consortium of accounting firm and things like that. And we did it. We were sleeping at Transnet, I remember that first year, it was so hard because we had to succeed for Stella. For her sake. And the following year it was easier, of course, because you were able to attract talent into your firm and you were able to grow your firm. And what that did was it gave confidence to other corporations, the Auditor General, to start giving work to black firms. And we're able to grow from small firms that we were at the time to medium-sized firms.
Hold that thought there. When we return, we'll look at the serious politics of your business only after the break. This is Question Time. Please don't go.
Africa. This is Kenya. The president is Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta. Kenya got independent from the United Kingdom on 12 December 1963. The population is more than 42 million people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is Kenya shilling.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Nongululeko Kobodo, Executive Chairperson of Sizwe Nsaluba Kobodo. Now, ma'am, the trend lately has been you find a company called Kumalo and Sons. Neither the Sons nor Kumalo himself are Kumalos. Now, in this case, Sizwe Nsaluba Kobodo, are this the actual persons who are owning this firm?
Sizwe Nsaluba Kobodo is a legacy that started nearly 30 years ago. And some of the founders have moved on, like Sizwe and Nsaluba. But the nice thing is that Kobodo is still there.
Okay. All right.
But it's not about the personalities anymore. It's a brand now.
But you know what is good about it is our people are very much used to wearing Dolce & Gabbana label, Giorgio Armani label. If I come with the same or a similar suit, but called Tsedu, right? Chances are I may not get as many clients as the others. Now, in your case, here you are. You've got a full African name company. Didn't it affect the reputation otherwise, where people are saying, you know what, we can't trust this black femme? Yeah.
I wish I could say that we've passed that, you know, after 20 years of democracy. But unfortunately, we've really not crossed that road yet. There is this suspicion about, you know, a black firm can really deliver. And I mean, this is very strange because we trained in the big four firms. We wrote the same exams and we passed. We fall under the same regulator and were reviewed by the same regulator. And I tell you, our regulator doesn't smile. If your processes are not in place, you will lose your license. So, but still, you know, because we are black and there's this suspicion that you can't do an audit. And I must really commend our leaders, both in government and also the black people who sit on these boards, who said that time is over when we are going not to have confidence in our own people. We are going to give our people these opportunities, because if you don't give them these opportunities, how will we know that they can? You know, and so when we got that assignment of being the sole auditors of Transnet, where we were in a position to run a big assignment like Transnet on our own for the first time, here we are, we succeeded. And because we succeeded, others now have been able to have the confidence. We do the audit of Dinel on our own. We've just recently been appointed the sole auditors of Eskom. South Africa is changing.
465 million contract you've secured. That's a lot of money.
I wish it is a lot. It was a lot of money. You must understand our structure. We have professionals, highly paid professionals, because if you don't have those highly trained and highly paid professionals, you can't deliver these projects. So although it may seem like a lot of money, we share it with a lot of people, which is really the model of our profession. And you participate in a professional services firm because you love it. And sometimes people think we are very rich, but we share we are one business that shares its profits with its people.
You know, perhaps let's then just go into ownership. You've got partners in your firm. What's the structure like? Let's break it down racially.
Okay. The partners were about 60 partners or so, 55 partners with associate directors, around 60. And it's 75% black owned and 25% white owned.
Women?
Women, 18%. So you can see there's still a long way to go.
Are you sleeping peacefully?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, this whole thing of women, it's actually also a very strange thing. Because when you, in terms of the numbers within the profession, we are still lagging behind. But when you look at now the graduates that are coming out of varsity, it's really 50-50, and sometimes it's more women. You just don't know what happens to these women after they graduate. They disappear in the system somewhere. So it's a pipeline issue. The fact that we still don't have Season Saluba Koboto being at least 30% women-owned. But we don't sleep at night. It's something that is on my agenda. I am personally the champion of talent in the organization.
Sure. Because
you need to have an executive driving these initiatives for them to succeed. Because if you don't, people will sleep unless they are put under pressure. So it's something that needs to be corrected. But it's a systemic problem. It needs to be solved in the system.
How does it affect the business as a whole? And let's not just focus on your company, but the audit industry. Yes.
It really affects us because, first of all, our government has these policies around employment equity and all of that, which we still need those policies to force South Africa to move towards empowering both black people and women. I think, as much as our government can have these policies and there's no corporate will, if you like, to actually push these agendas, I don't know why we have to force people, because the history of South Africa we all know. But I want to put the ball back in women's court as well. We as women, we are waiting. We are waiting for someone to open these doors for us. We're waiting for someone to open these opportunities for us. And when we do get these opportunities, we are put under so much pressure that we quit. And I think that's where this vicious cycle continues. Because remember, if we were the only manager at Standard Bank, only black female manager at Standard Bank, and you have this terrible boss who's not giving you opportunities and all of that, and you quit, can you imagine someone else have to go and start that thing? Whereas if you persevere, then you open doors for other women.
Let's talk about the expansion into Africa after the break. This is question time. Please don't go away.
Sasol says it's still ready and waiting for government to give the green light to fracking. Sasol avoided Eskom's woes because it makes more than 70% of its own energy. The ECB left interest rates unchanged at a record low of 0.25%. The ECB also failed to suspend weekly operations to soak up money it spent on sovereign bonds at the height of the Eurozone debt crisis, known as sterilisation.
That's business news, weekdays at 8 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Nonkululeko Gobodo, Executive Chairperson of Season Saluba Gobodo. Now, you have put plans. You now going into the rest of Africa, Western Africa. You've got your Kenyans, your Nigerias, which is quite a big market. Perhaps let's start by checking, what informed this. I know you have said that you've got clients who have business interests in those countries, but you're also trying to expand the brand, I suppose.
Yes. Susan Saluba-Koboto is an African story. It's not just a South African story. It was actually so sad for us when we realized, we thought, why we were now the 5th largest in South Africa, and we'll find other 5th largest in the rest of the continent, because remember, they were free before us.
Yes.
And when we investigated, we found that, in fact, that is not the case. Black accounting firms, indigenous accounting firms in the rest of the continent have not progressed as much as we have. And they look up to us, to bring them up to where we are now. We're really becoming a mentor for all of them. So we realized that if we're serious about our expansion in Africa, we need to identify partners today who can grow with us. And we can empower them with all the developments that we've already had in terms of systems and methodologies and new products and service lines that we've developed over the years, which some of them, they don't have those. So that was the first point. The second point was, but you could, take time to develop your Africa strategy and implement it. But there was pressure, serious pressure from our clients who were saying that we know Susan Saluba-Koboto. We are a reputable firm in South Africa. We trust you. We've been with you for a while. We want to go with you in Africa. We don't want you to just have an associate firm that we don't know. We cannot entrust our work and our audit to those. So we had to fast-track our plans to go into Africa. Otherwise, we're going to lose even the market position that we have in South Africa.
So what are the challenges that you have identified so far?
In this journey?
Yes.
The biggest challenge really is to find a ready-made Susan Saluba-Koboto type company in the continent. So it was a whole big process to identify firms that have a cultural fit, that at least are at a level that we can build from. Because again, we don't have billions of rands to invest in the continent. So it took time to identify those, and also the regulatory environments in the continent are so different, so diverse. So we have to study each country differently. It can't be. This is where some of the South African companies have failed in the continent, because they think Africa is one size fits all, and they think that they can import South African principles and business values systems, into the continent, and that's where they've been hit. And we had already heard this from our clients, so we knew that we had to do a whole study, and that took a bit of time, but we're wise to get Dr. Tem, who is our head of the Africa desk, who at least has worked in the continent and knew the environment. Otherwise, I think would have been taking a risk that we could not afford. So those were the big challenges.
You have, like I said, targeted a country like Nigeria. Almost 200 million people now. And like you're saying, the systems are very different from how, business is conducted in South Africa. Are you ready?
This is why we've chosen this route of identifying existing firms in those markets who understand the environment and merge with them and partner with them. There are various models, depending from the regulatory environment in certain countries. For instance, where as an outsider, you cannot just come into a country. You have to partner with a local firm. So it's different from country to country. I don't think you'd even begin to navigate Nigeria without such a partnership. The Nigerian firm that we're partnering with, they've been in the market there for 15 years. They are a reputable firm that is respected in that region. So we sort of choose our partners well.
Okay. Don't you step on politics toes in your business?
Yes. I don't know what you mean by politics toes. But obviously we all operate in a political environment as business, and it's something that we understand. And as a good businessman, you need to be able to navigate the political environment. I'm not sure where you are headed with your question. That's why I'm being careful.
Well, you are a financial person. I'm sure you wouldn't want to give it all. But let's now talk about the recently released Auditor General's report, where 260 odd municipalities. Less than, half of them are still not so much, up to scratch. How do you feel about that?
That really saddens me. That really is a sad story for me. Remember, there was this big campaign around the 2014 clean audit campaign. Now we're in 2014, we still have not achieved that. I was really sad to hear that only 9% of the municipalities got a clean report. And unfortunately, if your financial environment is not sound, it impacts on the service delivery. For me, it's all about the people. Our government has given promises to our people, and they're not able to deliver on that promise because of not only that, but service delivery is also being hampered by the financial environment and financial effectiveness in those businesses, which is why, as soon as Koboto, we've taken a bold step to say we are establishing a public sector advisory outfit where we're going to partner with government to solve these problems. As a citizen, you can't stand back and always be complaining and blaming, what are you doing? And we've said we're going to rise to the occasion because sometimes we still want this private sector, and so we don't want to be seen to be a public sector firm because we don't want to close the doors to the private sector. But we said, as a firm, we are taking the bold step. We are preparing ourselves fully fledged to be able to service this government so that we can help them meet the promises. The streets are burning. People are tired. These promises are not being fulfilled, and we're saying there's something we can do to contribute to solving this problem.
And by so doing, are you therefore saying you're going to focus less on the private sector?
Not at all. But realistically, let's be honest to ourselves. Our entry in the private sector has been very slow.
Okay.
Because again, there's still this suspicion and all of that, and because government is giving us these big assignments, so the private sector also thinks that we can rest a little bit because they are being empowered, which is really unfair in South Africa right now. So our gates are still open to the private sector, and we're pursuing them vigorously.
Your message to other women?
My message to other women is to say it's now 2014, and our government has done a lot to open doors for us. We now to take the responsibility of empowering ourselves.
Nonkululeko Kobodo, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mpo.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. Your feedback via email, questiontime@sabc.co.za, or Twitter handle @questiontime24. From me and the crew, it is a wonderful time. Goodbye.